Good day, everyone. This is Michael Hauser, BOKU University. Warm welcome to our Food System Resilience webinar, the second one in this winter term, organized by the Fact Alliance at MIT and BOKU University in Vienna. Today's topic is cyclones and floods and implications on water security in a admittedly constantly warming world. And yeah, I think we don't have to argue or discuss in detail why this is an important topic. But let's begin with a few important facts. And I'd like to start with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, the UNDRR. The lead UN agency for the coordination of disaster risk reduction. They've just published a recent report arguing that disasters are having profound economic impacts, and the losses estimated annually. They calculated with around 200 billion US dollars, and if you add the indirect costs that related disasters would cause, then we end up with 2.3 trillion US dollars a year. That means for every US dollar of the visible damage, we have about 11 US dollars additional losses, which is quite significant. And if we look at data from the World Meteorological Organization, then things are not getting any better. We had the hottest year on record in 2024, rapidly intensifying tropical storms, cyclones, stronger rainfall, storm surges, floods. And this is what we would like to discuss with a distinguished panel today. So on the panel, we have Kim Smet, specialized in water resources and decision-making under uncertainty with a specific focus on climate change adaptation. Kim worked as a lead water resource specialist with the World Bank for over 10 years, and Kim's based in Ottawa, Canada. And we have Bikash Biswas working with Caritas Bangladesh, with extensive experience in natural resource management under conditions of a constantly changing climate. Bikash managed climate change projects across Bangladesh for Caritas and in partnership with many other agencies. We have on the call Elizabeth Lapierre, here you are, who is our tutor, helping us out with the Q&As. So Elizabeth, you will be managing the Q&A sessions, and will be coming back in 20 to 25 minutes with a first overview. And on the call, my co-host, Greg Sixt, director of the Fact Alliance at MIT, Cambridge, USA. Greg, over to you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and thank you for agreeing to be on the panel, Kim and Bikash. This should be a really interesting conversation today. So I'm going to kick us off, focusing on some of the current states and impacts of cyclones and the relationship with climate change. So Kim, I'll start with you. What do you see as the major short and long-term impacts of coastal flooding and inland flooding?
Thanks, Greg, and thanks, Michael, for that introduction. So maybe one important clarification, Michael, if I may. So while I've worked on a number of World Bank projects, so I'm joining you today from industrial economics. We consult on World Bank projects, and so unfortunately, I can't say that this is sort of the official World Bank viewpoint that I bring. But from maybe a little bit of context as to where my experience lies and where I'll be providing some insights from, is we do a fair amount of international work through so-called country climate and development reports for the World Bank. And so through that, there is an interest in looking at sectors of particular interest to a country and assessing both present vulnerability and then also how climate change layered on top of that, how climate change will influence things. And so there is a core focus in all of that to translate that into economic impacts. So not to say that there are obviously very important livelihoods implications from flooding. That's not something that we speak to directly, or poverty impacts or that sort of thing. That I'm not necessarily going to be talking directly to those, not because they're not critical and important, but just because that's not a focus of our work centrally. So in terms of our sort of the near term and longer term impacts of cyclones and flooding, we have approached that through thinking through so-called impact channels. So when it comes to various ways that cyclones and flooding can affect, let's say, infrastructure is a big focus of ours. So we quantify how flooding impacts transportation networks, both in terms of direct damages. And so that in a lot of our thinking, we have that two-part component of the direct damages to infrastructure. We don't necessarily focus very much on loss of life, but then that second part of subsequent indirect damages. If you have a road network that has been taken out by a flood, what does that amount to in terms of lost productivity? Because people are now needing to take alternate routes. If a bridge is out, they're having to drive around a lot longer. What does that translate in terms of sort of economic losses because people are now longer on the road? In terms of cyclones, that's been a little bit more specialized of a focus for us. Obviously, cyclones or hurricanes or typhoons, depending on which part of the world you are in, are not as sort of widespread. We have looked at the impacts of cyclones in Madagascar, for instance. There's some work that we've done with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the US, that's looking specifically at impacts of hurricanes there. And so maybe I'll pause there just to give, I think that gives maybe a sort of a quick snapshot of our relatively infrastructure focused with a bit of economics thrown in there as well. That's sort of our angle through which we approach these issues.
Sure. And then just before we proceed, just because there's some terminology we're going to be using today, and people are joining us from different places, so just want to clarify the difference between cyclones, hurricanes, and other types of storms. Are we kind of talking about the same thing, or are we?
So yes, in terms of cyclones, it's my understanding. So cyclones, depending on which part of the world you're in, are the same as a hurricane and the same as a typhoon. A tropical storm, I think, is the less. Then you start to drill into the varying levels. So a tropical storm is before it becomes a full-on hurricane. And then once it is a hurricane or a cyclone, there are different levels of storm, different categories of storm. So a category 1 hurricane is generally less severe than a category 5. I hope that sort of clarifies. So I think cyclone versus hurricane, if it makes landfall in Mozambique, it's a cyclone. If it makes landfall in the US, it's a hurricane. And if it makes landfall the Philippines, it's a typhoon.
Okay. Yeah, and I think based on, category 1 to 5, at least for hurricanes, is based on wind speed, is my understanding. I think. Bikash, let's since we're talking about some specifics as we started to talk about terminology, let's dive a bit into Bangladesh and talk a bit about how cyclones play out in Bangladesh and what kind of impacts they have. So can you talk a bit about Bangladesh's experience with cyclones, how they impact them, and kind of what you're seeing there?
So, thank you, Greg. Actually, at the outset, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Bikash Biswas, working as Senior Program Officer under Ecological Conservation and Food Security section. I have been working around 20 years with Caritas Bangladesh. And we know Caritas Bangladesh is implementing around 85 projects through 6 sections. We have 3 sections. So ecological conservation and food security is one of the section. So we are implementing around 15 projects through these sections that are related to climate change, food security, adaptation, DRR, and also all the agricultural related activities we are implementing through our section. So actually, actually, we implement all the activities covering the overall Bangladesh, and there are different agroecological zone in Bangladesh. So coastal zones, drought areas, flood-prone areas, and hilly areas like that. And so, the Bangladesh is more flood-prone areas, disaster-prone areas, because there are a lot of rivers and also besides the Bay of Bengal. So for this reason, Bangladesh is very disaster-prone areas. Now come to your point. Actually, yeah, as Bangladesh is very frequently cyclone-prone areas, so every year one or two cyclones are happen especially in coastal areas. So actually, what we see in the short-term impact after cyclone or tidal surges. Uh, Especially already Kim mentioned that our impact also very close to her, damage all the houses and also casualties of human life, also damaged huge areas of crops and livestock and washed away all the aquacultural farm like ponds, small ponds, shrimp farm, that types of canals, all the fresh water sources are washed away by the saline water due to cyclone as well as tidal surges. As well as also there is a very big crisis that's seen after the cyclone in our areas, very drinking water sources, because all the sources of drinking water are washed away by saline water, like in coastal people, the community people of in the coastal areas, they normally drink the pond water by using rainwater, also by using ponds and filter. Sometimes they use rainwater harvesting, this type of, and also there is some shallow and deep well also, but all are washed away by saline water. For this reason, the drinking water crisis is very critical for this after cyclone. And also the sanitation facilities, all the sanitation facilities are damaged. So actually, the sanitation facilities in the coastal areas, especially for the poor community people, are not good. Semi paka, do you know, or sanitation facilities actually not good. For this reason, when cyclone comes, all the latrines they use washed away and broken down. And we can say the destroy all the livestock, all the trees in this area due to cyclone. So and there is create some food crisis just after the cyclone. And then also, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Right.
And also we also all the educational institutions like primary and secondary educational institutions are closed after cyclone normally. And some women related problem like gynecological problem of women, especially administration situation for the women who take shelter in the cyclone shelter, they face their ministerial problem. So, a gynecological problem for women is also very acute, is seen after cyclone. So we can say that was the short impact, we can say.
Mm.
Uh,
Thanks, Bikash. Let me come in here. A very dear image that you're drawing from that period when a cyclone hits Bangladesh. I want to turn this to Kim and ask: is what you've just heard from Bikash? Is that something you can confirm for other regions in terms of impact? So basically, cyclones and floods that disrupt essential services, including electricity, drinking water, education. Kim.
Definitely. So I would say I would draw on the work that we've done in the context of the US here. So there, I mean, post a major flood event happening, you see sort of not just the infrastructural damage, but to some extent lingering power outages, which has knock-on economic impacts too in other regions of the world. For instance, I would add what Bikash has described as already fairly comprehensive. I would layer into that to the sort of longer term like contamination effects that happen. So when you have floodwaters and they not just are taking out sanitation facilities, and you have people no longer having access to clean drinking water and needing to use sort of toilet sources that are not protected and separated, that's something that we have documented too within our work, the sort of longer term sort of cholera outbreaks and that sort of thing. Even in certain cases, we have done a little bit of work in the Sud in South Sudan. That's more inland flooding of a wetland, but there, when you have larger than anticipated floods, you start to see significant contamination because of flooding of the oil facilities. And so obviously that has that two-part. Yes, that has a very significant economic impact as one of their main sort of drivers of economic activity in the region. But that oil, untreated oil spreading out into the Sud across a large area has very lingering effects in terms of contamination.
And that what you just said, this actually connects very well to, so this whole course focuses on food, land, and water. And so we had our last session was on land, and so these responses have gotten me thinking about the long-term impacts to land and soil. So, Kim, one thing you mentioned is in the inland flooding and the Sud impacts from oil. If we look at the kind of the coastal regions where there's a good amount of agriculture, sometimes if we've got this flooding, are there long-term impacts from flooding, from cyclones on the soil that might take a very long time for agricultural land to recover? Is that something we see quite commonly? Either of you can answer this, actually.
The salinization, I don't have a clear sense, maybe because you do, how sort of protracted of an issue that is, but the inland flooding with salt water certainly has impacts in terms of agricultural productivity and the usability of that land. But maybe because you have on the ground experience of how long before things bounce back post saline flooding.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Just, I think that in Bangladesh, actually, when the cyclone comes, the embankment or dike of canal ponds are washed away and broken down. So saline water institution is increased hugely. For this, actually, all the agricultural land are washed away by saline water. So when the water goes down, then the saline, the soil fertility decreased hugely because there is huge saline for this region that is not suitable for crop or any or practice any other agriculture. So for this region, this is our coastal belt areas experience. But if we say our other northern part of Bangladesh, where riverine areas. So when flash flood comes in our northern part of Bangladesh, that is drought prone areas, then sometimes the waterlogged, huge waterlogged is seen in that areas. For this reason, the farmers cannot cultivate crops and any other agricultural crops for around 6 to 7 months because all the land goes underwater. So they cannot cultivate any in our northern part of Bangladesh. I told the situation. And the Saleh coastal belt area, just I mentioned that there is the huge agricultural land, we keep as fallow land for because only uh, these land are rain fed. It depends on only rainwater because the fresh water is not available in the coastal areas. As every year the flood comes, tidal surges comes, cyclone comes. So uh, they are actual situation. So farmers actually depends on only one crop in a year in the agricultural land. Though we are trying the different, I will tell later when the adaptive capacity, adaptive strategy. Thank you, Kim.
Right. Thanks, Bikash. I mean, relatedly, what do tropical storms, the landfall of a cyclone, do to people? Can you help us to understand what's happening to communities in terms of social cohesion? Does it actually increase social cohesion, or is there other likelihoods that it leads to, the opposite? Even conflicts. Do tropical storms have implications for peace and security in the long run? What's your perspective on that, Kim? If start with you and then move to Bikash.
I could see there being elements of both. I mean, on the one side, you hear, I mean, if there is limited drinking water, limited food supplies, displaced populations, you hear of cases where there's increased gender violence because now people are sort of needing to they're outside of their usual safer communities, and so when there have been instances documented of women lining up late for water or at food pickup points, and then you sort of see increased violence in those sorts of cases, which would suggest more the negative side of that. At the same time, I don't, maybe because you do, I don't have good, clear examples of cases where there is an increase in social cohesion. As a person, though, I could imagine that this could be one response, although I don't have necessarily good evidence to back that up. Are there cases you are thinking of, Michael, in terms of where there have been sort of demonstrable increases in social cohesion and in people coming together and in helping each other out?
Yeah, Bikash, how does that play out in Bangladesh?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, ma'am. Michael, actually, Bangladesh is a heavy, densely populated country. But actually, after just immediate cyclone, the people take shelter at the cyclone shelter. But cyclone shelter is not enough for the if we compare to the total population in the coastal areas. So after just cyclone, people go to the cyclone shelter. But say on cyclone shelter, there 100 people can take shelter during cyclone. But actually, what happened in our context? Actually, 200 or 300 people take shelter in a cyclone shelter, where only where this cyclone shelter can accommodate only for 100 people. But what is happening there for this? Because as there is male, female, all are take shelter in a one cyclone shelter. So there is but they face different problems. There is a social insecurity increased because especially for women, children, and women for women, because say or they only one or two washroom or latrine for available for cyclone shelter, but actually 200 people's they have to use this toilet, so they live together in a cyclone shelter. Actually, so there is a huge social insecurity is happened during cyclone. And actually, but our in different NGOs, Caritas, and other governments, even especially especially elders, oldest people, uh, and actually disabled people with disabled families are suffer a lot because they cannot go to cyclone shelter easily. So sometimes the community help each other, especially the young people and different NGOs representative and government representative also miking and give their different signals on and also plug their different colors flag to award them. So that they go to the cyclone shelter earlier. In this way, actually, the community people sometimes help each other. It is also seen. But actually, in the context of our country, as I told you, the accommodation is not, the facilities of shelter facilities is not enough. For this reason, some social insecurity also happened in that time. Thank you.
Thank
So
you
if I
both. We
may,
are. Oh, go ahead, Kim. No,
yeah, no,
please
I
go
was
ahead.
just I think Bikash's description of sort of the immediate post-cyclone situation is very interesting. I think
Yeah.
in my experience, the social cohesion, to the extent that it comes, seems to come a little later in terms of community level initiatives once the immediate once the rebuilding has begun in a way. So I remember post Hurricane Sandy in the US, for instance, I think that was 2012. Then there was sort of a real, to the extent that that demonstrates cohesion and sort of a coming together of communities in the rebuilding efforts. There was very much a focus in the hardest hit communities. How can we, at the community level, make sure that what comes back and how we rebuild supports not just our community to be better in the future, but make sure that these sorts of impacts don't happen again. So there are a number of good examples on coming out of Hurricane Sandy in New York and on the Rockaways and in New Jersey, communities there that really sort of came together around the post damage. Now, how do we rise up out of this phase of the hurricane there?
Yeah, Kim, and as you talk about Hurricane Sandy, it makes me think of the hurricane that hit that went through North Carolina and Asheville, which is inland in the mountains and created really devastating flooding. I think this was last year or the year before now. It's and that, what you're describing is that kind of post disaster uh, community cohesion, from what I've read and from what I've heard, that seems to be occurring there right now. As they're still rebuilding, as they're still clearing out river riverbeds, from debris that work's still going on. So we're at the midpoint, and we're going to shift towards a focus on building resilience. But before we do that, I want to use this opportunity to pause here. I think we've had a couple questions from the audience. Some of our students submitted some questions beforehand. So I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth and have her read some of the questions, and then we'll move on and focus on some of the building resilience components after. So Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, and thank you everyone for your insight. So the first question actually fits perfectly with this discussion you're having now. It's what can community-led initiatives play during and after cyclones and flood? And mostly, how could they be better supported and scaled at a bigger level?
Bikash, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, no problem. Okay, fine. Actually, I would like to mention more about the post-disaster situation. Then I will come back to Elizabeth questions. Actually, in our context, there are a lot of long-term impacts after cyclone that I didn't mention previously, like degradation of biodiversity. That means the intensity of crops, intensity of trees are decreasing day by day due to cyclone. As well as if you see the farmers face a huge amount of seed crisis because they cannot go to the immediate any agricultural cultivation due to lack of seed, because they only depends on to company for seed. But after immediate disaster, they cannot collect the seed for cultivation. In the same way, some trafficking is seen in our areas because there is a huge food insecurity, especially for the poor farmers, poor smallholder farmers, because so for this reason there is occurring some trafficking, especially women trafficking and child trafficking, as is coastal belt is very close to India border, so there is some occurring this type of trafficking also occur after cyclone, uh, and also the soil fertility is decreased hugely. For this reason, farmers cannot cultivate any crops for 6 months because the soil is not good, is not suitable. It take time to regain its fertility. And also, some social conflict is also increased after post-disaster due to their social insecurity, due to food insecurity, as their house are broken, damaged. So for a lot of causes, and our government cannot provide a lot of support if you compare to the amount of damage. For this reason, actually people suffers a lot after cyclone. And then the seasonal migration is also is increased hugely because after the cyclone, they lost their all livelihood sources. So what they will do for their maintain to their family? So they migrate from on to another areas. Even they sometimes they cross the border. They go to the India for that time. For this reason, trafficking is increased hugely, and our areas, the coastal areas or the flash flood areas also, they are they suffer due to use drinking water sources because after just post disaster, they can't use their rainwater harvesting tank, they can't use their pond, they can't use their canal water, this fresh water for
Yeah.
irrigation purposes. So a huge long-term impact is seen after cyclone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
sorry.
just wanted to come back to the community led. So the question from the audience. So there's a lot of what you were highlighting, Bikash, is that there's a lot of real serious challenges that are that have real impacts. So then the question from the audience is what community led initiatives, what role can community led initiatives play during and after these cyclones, and how can they be better supported and scaled to address some of the problems you just highlighted? And Kim, you can step in on this as well if you've thought about this from your work.
In terms of supporting them, I would maybe say one of the things that I have, or that, for instance, going back to Hurricane Sandy and some of those post disaster efforts, there seemed to be a very real need to better integrate. Like, there is a multitude of formal response entities. There's the city, there's municipal entities within the US. For instance, the Army Corps of Engineers is involved when it comes to flood response. So the many formal entities that are involved, and then you have community initiatives trying to link those in better to the various formal channels. And that's, I don't necessarily have a clear picture of how that happens, but improved integration between on the ground efforts by community-led initiatives and the various more sort of formal, longer-term actors in that space, I think would make a very big difference. And also tools, like having a clear sense of where do you go for the most up-to-date information, where are sort of official evacuation notices, that sort of thing, at a community level, making sure that there is some sort of easy to access tool. I would say that that's something that could help support these sorts of initiatives. But that's focusing on sort of one particular case within the US post Hurricane Sandy.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth, do we have, so I just want to remind the audience that there's a Q&A section. So we're hoping that we have some time after the next section as well for some questions. So I'm already seeing it light up. So Elizabeth, let's take maybe one more question, and then if we have time at the end, we'll do some more questions at the end.
Yes, that's perfect. And actually, one of the question was about like how can we get more integrated and have more of an anticipatory water management strategy. So I think that Kim, you answered that quite well, or at least the importance of it. So the other one would be, are you involved in designing disaster prevention plan? And if so, can you explain the process and what are the main challenges that are faced in prevention planning?
I can answer very quickly in the sense that I'm not centrally involved in those. So I'm hoping Bikash may have more actual experience. I'll cede the time to him, but Bikash, if I'm putting you on the spot, feel free to push it back to me.
Thank you, Kim. Actually, from on national level, before when uh, we receive any warning for cyclone, then from our national level, we arrange a meeting with our government. Also, government called meeting at the district level, even at the sub-district level. And in that case, actually, as per the available of asset and capacity of our NGOs, that is non-government organizations, private organizations, as well as from government's side. So they make plan how we can overcome, how we can how the take how we can take the step to overcome these type of calamities, this type of casualties. So I think uh, recently our government also to also give uh, also took some politics policies already, uh, some already made our government, and as per the policy they try to coordinate all the actors they are involving. Normally they involve with this type of situation to tackle this type of disaster. So in that case, actually, what we do? Actually, we from the grassroots level, if we say about the grassroots level, that is at the village level, what level we have a union, what level disaster management committee of Caritas Bangladesh, and the union level, there is also a union disaster management committee, that is means UDMC. So at the village level, it is called what disaster management committee and union level, and then it is sub-district level and district level. So all the committees are working together to during or just pre-disaster movement, uh, and even the post-disaster movement also. So in this way, actually we work together, government, NGOs, and other private sectors.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bikash. It was interesting. I think we can move on to the second part. So Michael, I will give you back the play.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Actually, we're in the middle of the second part already, building resilience, and I have a few short questions and a request for a brief response. So, first one is on foresight. Kim, are our foresight capabilities sufficient currently?
Foresight in terms of forecasting extreme events.
Exactly. Yeah.
They are good.
So that we give people enough time to move out of the danger zone or to bunker.
It's a good question. I don't know that I have a good answer. It, to some extent, yes. I mean, we see the recent hurricane that so devastating in Jamaica. I think that was tracked for a number of days. I mean, you see these developing across the ocean. Of course, it's unpredictable up until the very last minute where it will make landfall, how much it will strengthen. I think that uncertainty in how these storms are changing, that may be growing a little bit when you throw climate change into the mix. Like they seem to be strengthening faster. So that may suggest that no, there is not ample time. My sense, though, is that the forecasting capabilities are there, but perhaps the responses are where we fall short in terms of being able to take fairly decisive action early enough.
And Kim, I just want to chime in here because I literally just had this conversation about the Jamaica hurricane with a colleague who works within the WHO on regional responses to disasters. And what was interesting is that he said that in the case of that hurricane, it was so big and getting so strong because it was moving so slowly that it actually gave them time to position emergency response. And that was just an interesting thing to kind of highlight, that it was actually so strong and had stuck in position for so long that they were able to actually be prepared for just after it. And then there's always, discussions around where the data access is going. But sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to.
No, but fits perfectly. I would like to move on with Bikash. Now moving from forecast to actual preparedness, is there sufficient time on the ground to get prepared?
Yes.
Short response. We have 12 minutes left.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Actually, we can say they get time because the different agencies, they provide their different signals by miking or in this way, different ways by plugging different color plugs, so they know. But actually, what is happened? So people don't want to go to the shelter because they don't want to left their livestock. They don't want to left with their asset like that. What actually happened? The poor people go to the shelter at the 11th hour. At that time, actually, cyclone have already happened or coming to the very close. So for that reason, some casualties is happening, especially livestock and others asset death rate is high for this region.
Right.
Actually, they get time, but they do not go to the, and as well as the space of cyclone shelter is not enough. Okay.
Right. And the related aspect is finance. So is in your perspective, is disaster risk finance sufficiently developed? And we can ask this at global level, but we can also ask that question at country level. So in other words, is it fit for
In
purpose
other
or
areas
is
also the same scenario also.
okay?
For
Okay.
Bangladesh, I told all over
Okay.
Bangladesh.
Kim, what's your
I think it's
view?
very context specific. I mean, in the US and in Canada, where I am, there are definitely emergency funds that can be made available for these kinds of scenarios. Whether they are enough, maybe historically, yes. But if you are facing an increasing number of disasters every year, possibly no, in the sort of when you're seeing the annual budget. But I would say very context specific.
Okay. And in terms, Greg, my last question, then and I hand over to you. Is water infrastructure? I mean, is the water infrastructure as we currently see it fit for purpose? Bikash mentioned at the beginning he experiences 1 to 2 cyclones every year in an already vulnerable context, and that already has implications for the water infrastructure. And I assume that as climate change progresses and we can't get our acts together at the COPs, we likely to see even more of those cyclones in future. So in terms of water infrastructure, coming 30 to 50 years, are we fit for purpose there? Irrigation channels, water and sanitation, or do we have to rethink that part,
I think this
especially
is
in coastal areas?
my favorite topics, Michael, is this can we build infrastructure that is more flexible in the sense that historically engineers are they like things that can be sized big, you build it once, you maintain it, and then it is good forever. Well, I'm generalizing a little bit, but can we build things that are in some way more adaptable as we get more familiar with how things are changing in the future? So to that extent, I would suggest maybe they are fit enough for purpose, but I suspect we can be doing more, and certainly better integration of nature-based pieces into a gray infrastructure system, I think is another area that we could be fitter.
Okay, thanks. Craig?
Yeah, I just wanted to, this is kind of connecting both pieces, but are we for the future, as we look into how hurricanes or cyclones are evolving, are we seeing more frequency? Are we expecting to see, is it likely we'll see more frequency or kind of similar frequency but more intensity or both? Kim, I know you've been working a lot with models in this space. What are you finding, and Bikash as well? Do we think that, because I've read kind of conflicting data on this. So are we looking at a future of more frequent hurricanes, more similar number but more intense, or both, more frequent and more intense?
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Actually, if we look, if we compare to our previous and present cyclone movement, nature of cyclone, so actually the frequency is increasing, no doubt, and also the rainfall and duration of cyclone is increasing. I think if we saw the last year cyclone or this year cyclone, and the strong wind speed is more, and also the wave of tidal surge is increased. We can say is strong compared to the other. And also the period of cyclone is changing actually. Say in previously in 2007 when Ayla or Chidor is coming, I think at that time the period it was October, but now just changing the time of cyclone, I think, is my observation. And also expand the large areas. The previously the cyclone hit in one point, on a spot, but now at that time we say only one district or one sub district might be damaged hugely, but now the 2, 3 districts or large areas we can say is are damaging hugely. So I think, and also sometimes the direction of cyclone is changing. The last during our last cyclone, it was supposed to hit in Bangladesh Sundarban part, but after some time, that means after 4 to 5 hours later, we heard it was going to direct Myanmar. So this type of changing of directions and also the behavior of cyclone is changing, as I see. Thank you.
I can weigh in if we have 2 minutes, but
Yeah. I was just gonna. You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, you can close us out with kind of your input on this as well.
Yes. So we've not necessarily done sort of a comprehensive review of what all studies are saying within our own work in the US, at least. There does seem to be relatively strong evidence that at the higher category hurricanes do seem to be increasing in frequency and in their severity. There's less clarity for lower category storms. So category 1 storm, if you look at individual climate futures, so different GCMs, global climate model runs, some say a decrease, some say an increase. So there seems to be less consistency there, but at least at the high end, more storms with more severity. In places where we've done analyses, like in Madagascar, that seemed to be fairly consistent with what their own meteorological department was finding too. So an increase in those top level storms with more damage. And in the case of Madagascar too, they were saying the typical track of the storms was shifting in a way that was actually going to be more damaging for them, because they were anticipated to be more direct hits with a portion of the island that had more of the cities or more of the country's infrastructure and population. Of course, variability in that, and most of these projections, I would say, there is uncertainty. as one would imagine. But unfortunately, yes, the trend seems to be for more frequent as well as more severe.
Thanks. We are getting to a close. I hope we didn't lose Bikash. I can't see him, but I'll ask the very final question, and that is a simple
Okay,
one,
fine.
a simple question with a question mark, and just one answer, or one sentence response. Now, we started off with finance, I'd like to close with finance, and if you could choose one single action that we should all invest in immediately to reduce future impact, what would that be?
Actually, my thinking is very critical person. It's very difficult to answer with a very online.
Give it a
But
try, because we have 1 minute to close.
I think we should go to the not to the only pack food support for the instantly, but it is not enough. We should go to the see how our people can get a release for long time. So we should consider this, not the instant support for food package or like that. Not enough. We should consider how they can release, how they can overcome this type of problem for considering long-term effect. Thank you.
Thanks. Kim, one single action you would put your money in.
I would say in terms of prevention, can we focus more on building in not play let's not build in places that are going to worsen our risk. So I would say, how can we target not making the situation worse through our development actions?
I agree with him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
we are
Greg.
we're at the end of our time. This was as all interesting conversations go, they go by quickly. So thank you both, Kim and Bikash, for joining us today and for a really engaging conversation. Thank you for the folks online who joined us. Kim and Bikash, we've sent you separate links